She said she didn't want to pay that bread.
Yeah, that's what it was.
So today we're going to be talking about abuse, neglect, and misappropriation. I know it kind of sounds like we just did this because, yeah, we did, but we're going to do it again because it's a new year. So we all know about abuse, neglect, and misappropriation because we deal with it all the time. I talk to you guys about it every day. Donna makes her rounds. We always have issues, complaints. What is the number for the abuse hotline?
1-800-96.
Make sure you don't call 86. 1-800-96-ABUSE. Who here is your abuse coordinator? Donna Centenary. Where does Donna work? Donna works in social services.
What's wrong with you?
If you have questions about if it is abuse, neglect, or misappropriation, who would you contact? Donna, Debbie, Alice, myself. You can ask your immediate supervisor. Absolutely. Who here is responsible for reporting abuse, neglect, or misappropriation? Everybody. All right. That's right. You guys are all mandated reporters for abuse, neglect, or misappropriation. I have a quick slide from the Department of Children and Families, and we'll run through this, and then both of you guys have seen the test here that you guys have in front of you. We're going to complete it together. The last time this test was put out, there was a lot of questions about which one is abuse, what is neglect, and if it is misappropriation. So we'll go through that together. All right? You guys ready? Okay. Okay. So today we're going to talk about protecting vulnerable adults. The state deems that once an elderly patient enters into a skilled nursing facility or an assisted living facility, that they are deemed frail and vulnerable, which means the state feels that they need to put guidelines in to protect these individuals from abuse, neglect, and misappropriation. Anybody know about misappropriation? What does that mean? Speak up. Stealing. Basically, you are taking something that does not belong to you. All right, so we're going to talk about reporting the abuse and neglect, the investigation, and then the agencies you use. All right, so this chapter 415 is the code that we use from the state that tells us that we need to report the abuse, neglect, misappropriation. We need to find training for it, as well as make sure that everybody is educated and aware and know that they have it. The purpose of this from the DCF is to create an investigation. So once an allegation of abuse happens, we end up with an investigation. That's why Donna comes around and she asks you guys to fill out what?
Let me sign that, Zula.
Statements. You guys got to write statements for her about what happened. You know the 5 W's: who, what, when, where, and why, right? So when she does that, that's when we're getting prepared for the investigation. Most likely state comes in and we talk to them and we figure out what happened. We also, the purpose of this is we determine if the alleged victim has been abused, neglected, or exploited, and we determine if assistance is necessary. Yes? All right. Okay, so our elder population is usually the disability of above 65. There is over 1 million people with a disability in over 65 in Florida. Yes, Florida's very big, apparently so. All right, they have hearing difficulties, vision difficulties, cognitive difficulties, ambulatory. They have self-care difficulties, which means it's hard for them to be able to take care of themselves, which ends up with self-neglect. And they have independent living difficulties. So that's why some people end up in the assisted living facilities. They end up here for rehab to be able to get stronger, so they can either go home to take care of themselves or with families to help take care of themselves. So we have a lot of residents who have a lot of difficulties just in the state of Florida alone. So a vulnerable adult means a person aged 18 or older whose ability to perform the normal activities of daily living and or to provide for his own care or protection is impaired due to a mental, emotional, sensory, long-term physical, developmental, or dysfunction or brain damage due to the infirmities of aging. Which means all of our residents here have some form of a disability. That's why they're here. Whether it be a hip surgery, knee surgery, they have shoulder surgery, they fell at home, they have muscle weakness, they need to get stronger, they were sick with pneumonia. All these forms are disability, which labels them vulnerable. A caregiver, that's you guys. That's every one of us who comes into contact with these residents, correct? You guys are all their caregiver. In some way, shape, or form, you provide care for them. Whether it's therapy to get them stronger, dietary to help nourish them, CNAs who help with their ADLs, nurses who help give them meds, correct? So we are all part of a caregiver. A caregiver is a person who has been entrusted with or has assumed the responsibility for frequent and regular care of services to a vulnerable adult on a temporary permanent basis. You have a commitment, agreement, or understanding with that person or that person's guardian that a caregiver role exists. Make sense? Okay. Abuse, neglect, and exploitation or misappropriation are complex and often hidden problems. That's why sometimes we're not sure if this is abuse, if this is neglect, if this is misappropriation, or if we have to report it. Sometimes it gets a little confusing. So the Department of Children and Families, this is why they investigate these alleged abuse, neglect, and misappropriation. We all know the hotline. Everybody has a responsibility to make a report when abuse, neglect, or misappropriation happens. Okay? We're all reporters for this. What is abuse? Abuse means willful act or threatened act by a relative, caregiver, or household member which causes or is likely to cause significant impairment to a vulnerable adult's physical, mental, or emotional health. It includes acts and omissions, which means it's not only the act of physical, social, economical, mental abuse, it's also you omitting things from them, where you are not telling them about their care that they're going to be getting. You are forgetting to tell them information about their health care. You're not respecting their resident rights. So it's not only the actions that you provide, it's the things that you don't that can be abuse, neglect, or misappropriation as well. Neglect, the failure or omission on the part of the caregiver or vulnerable adult to provide care, supervision, and services necessary to maintain the physical and mental health of a vulnerable adult. Now, not only can a caregiver and family members cause neglect, but a resident themselves can self-neglect, which means they don't, like I said before, have the means to be able to take care of themselves. Okay? It is also the failure of a caregiver or vulnerable adult to make a reasonable effort to protect the adult. And neglect is repeated conduct or a single incident of carelessness. Okay, it can just means it happened once, but it's still neglect. So we just talked about self-neglect, which means this residents, these elderly population, cannot meet their own basic needs. It can be because they're too weak to be able to do it. They have mental issues that they cannot take care of themselves. So self-neglect is something we also need to be aware of, not just of basic neglect. All right, exploitation, misappropriation. All right, you are knowingly, by deception or intimidation, obtaining or using or attempting to obtain or use the adult's funds, assets, or property with the intent to temporarily or permanently deprive the adult of these benefits. So basically you are taking something from them, whether they know it or not, and you are using it for your own personal gains. You're taking their money without them knowing. You're stealing from them. You go in their room, the room that's their area, their right to have, and you are taking things from them. Would you want someone to come into your room, into your home, and take something from you?
Oh, they ain't gonna do that. They ain't gonna do that. I don't advise them to do that.
So then we need to make sure that we're paying our residents the same respect.
You might not make it out. You ain't gonna make it.
What belongs to them does not belong to us just because they're in a facility. A person who exploits is in a position of trust and confidence with a vulnerable adult. That's all of us. We all are here to help them, to take care of them, to protect them. So they trust us to do that for them. Now what happens if there's abuse, neglect, or we steal from them? Not only do we hurt them financially, physically, emotionally, but they break the trust. They don't trust us no more. And that just doesn't stop here. That goes on to every other facility that they can go into. How many residents have you heard of that have been mistreated at other facilities? A lot, right? And they come here to us, and what do they automatically not do when they get here? They don't trust us because we're still another facility. So be the person that they can trust. Be the person that they're not going to regret letting you take care of them. A person who knows or should know that a vulnerable adult lacks the capacity to consent, and they're not always known by the victim. So people who are not even on their units can come and take from them. They don't always know them. Remember, respect everybody and their personal belongings. It belongs to them. Okay? Those are their bodies, their things. We take care of them, we don't hurt them. And you guys are mandated reporters. I will probably repeat this several times. You guys are mandated to report any form of abuse, neglect, or misappropriation. So the abusers, we just talked about them, are family members. They're people that the victims don't know. They're caregivers, whether they be here, at home. Those are anybody that the resident or the victim comes in contact with. Anybody can do this to anybody, except us, right? Yes, Mr. Okay, so abusers are often family members, trusted friends, and caregivers. They're likely to have a history of mental or behavior disorders. They may be using or abusing alcohol or other substances. They may have poor financial situation or financial dependency. And they're often critical of others and lack understanding about the needs of those for whom they care. So basically, these individuals are actually putting themselves before the residents in the building, because their needs matter more than the people who are here that they're to take care of. I know it sounds silly, but it happens. Indicators of abuse. Well, you have physical indicators, right? What are some physical signs of abuse? Bruises where? On your body. If they have a bruise on their leg, does that automatically mean it was physical abuse? No, they could bump their leg, right? So signs of physical abuse. If the resident has circular marks on both of their wrists, would you think that would be more a sign of a physical abuse, or maybe they just bump both their wrists at the same time? It could be physical abuse, right? You know, if they have fingerprint marks on both of their shoulders, you know, they're being shaken. They have marks around their neck. Yeah, they may have a necklace, but their necklace might not go all the way up to their chin. Those are physical signs of abuse, okay? The environmental indicators meaning these are things in your environment that you can look for. They have garbage around their home. They become hoarders. They have animal excrement. They have fecal matter all over the place. These are physical, environmental indicators that something is happening to these individuals, to these residents. Which means you can see these signs here, can you not? Mm-hmm. These residents, these are their rooms, right? You can look for these signs here, not only at their house, but home here. Behavior indicators of a victim. This is something that we all need to be on the lookout for, because these are the signs that we're going to see from the people who have been the victims. These are the signs you want to look for. Destructive behavior of the victim, assault of others, they destroy their belongings, threatens harm or suicide, inappropriately displays rage in public, which means they just get mad for no reason. They're afraid of being alone. There are recent or sudden changes in their behavior or attitude. So that could be delirium, but it also can show you that there's a sign of a form of abuse going on. It's a sudden change in their behavior. Maybe a family member had just visited them and left, and now this behavior of this resident is different. Is that something that you guys could notice? Yes. Okay. They have suspicion of other people, show symptoms of withdrawal, or severe hopelessness, which is a form of depression, right? So you'd be able to know that. Yes, please. Okay. Constantly moves from place to place. They're frightened of the caregivers, or they're overly quiet, passive, timid, and denial of problems. How many residents have you walked in the room and they tell you to not touch me? Don't touch me, even though you've never met them. Why? Because they're afraid something has happened to them that might not have been from you, but it's from somebody else. So these are signs to look out for. Now we all know abuse happens in many ways. Marital conflict, they're having family problems, marriage problems. Even some of our residents here who've been married forever still have marriage problems. The caregivers feel forced to provide care, resentment, or jealousy. Maybe you're overworked, you're stressed out. You have too many things going on, not only at home but at work, and you take it out on a resident. There are too many people in a crowded home. There's financial problems or lack of financial expertise. Medical issues. You have family members who may not understand why their loved ones are here. They may not understand the dementia or the Alzheimer's, and it frustrates them because their family member is not who they used to be. They don't do the things that they used to do anymore. So this husband or this wife gets frustrated because they don't understand what's going on and they don't know how to fix it. How many husbands have you known that say, I don't know what to do without my wife?
Me.
Then they've been married for 50-something years, and now the wife is here, the wife's not home. How many residents can't sleep at night because they're so used to that person being there? And they're frustrated.
I actually had a resident tell me that they know, but they're just in denial.
Yeah, they get restless. They can be in denial.
That's what I'm saying, because they come to us for a reason. So I don't think it's not that they don't know, they just not willing to accept.
So, and maybe they don't want to admit it. They don't want that. They want that denial. This can't be happening. It can be a number of factors. Absolutely. And that can create hostility. It can create anger, frustration, and then they lash out at their loved ones who are here in our building, which is another form of abuse. So normally when we report abuse, they say if it's a physical abuse, it needs to be reported within 2 hours. Any other abuse usually happens within, you try to report it within 24 hours, we usually make that deadline. And then the investigation will start within that 24-hour time period, okay? They determine any indicators of abuse, neglect, or exploitation. They assess safety and risk of further harm, determine needs for services, and they usually complete the investigation within 60 days. Some of us, we already usually get the outcome, usually within a week. Now, these are all the agencies that can help in an investigation, not only DCF, but you also have the Department of Elder Affairs, Agency for Persons with Disabilities, the Advocacy Council for the Patient with Disabilities, and so on. The number of people that actually can help during these investigations can become endless. So we, as the individuals here, will provide any agency with any help that we can give them, any information that we can give them. So if you are the one that has to report an abuse, neglect, or misappropriation, make sure you write a statement. Give as much information as you can to be able to help the investigation, not impede the investigation. Make sure that you're signing your name and you're writing legibly so that anybody who looks at this statement can read it. And then this just talks about the budget for the adult protective services. This right here is a report of how many allegations were received in the last 10 years, which is pretty big. 49,000 reports of abuse in 2015. 49,000.
It's crazy.
All right. So these are all just more statistics. But what we're going to do now is we're actually going to go through your tests.
Those statistics, Crystal, are they founded though, or they just reports?
These are reports. They're reported allegations. So these are things that were reported to you. All right, so we're going to go through your tests real quick. So what we need to know is if this is abuse, neglect, or misappropriation, and what you would do with them. Okay?
Your girlfriend got something? Oh, that's Amy.
I just gave.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Everybody got a paper? Okay. So the first one, Mrs. Jones was told the aide that she hasn't been changed for the last 4 hours. She is wet through her pants. Would this be considered abuse, neglect, or misappropriation?
Neglect.
Neglect. What should you do? You need to change her, right? Because if she's wet and you're running around the building reporting this, she's still wet. So we need to make sure that we change her and make her comfortable, and then we need to report it. Who do you report it to? Donna. Nurse. Do you report it to the nurse? You report it to Donna? You report it to your supervisor. All right. Mrs. Potter cannot find her purse. Come look at this. She left it at her nightstand after lunch, which was 30 minutes ago. Is this abuse, neglect, or misappropriation?
Misappropriation.
Misappropriation. Okay, what do you do? Help her look for it. We gotta look for it first. It might be in the bathroom. That has happened. We found a purse in the bathroom.
Okay, but what if you need some help finding it? You gotta let somebody know.
Yeah, you asked help to find it. Yeah. Right, but usually helping them to find the purse help them calm down. Sometimes. Okay, you walk into Mr. Bird's room to find the aide roughly removing his shirt. He's yelling at her to stop because she's hurting him.
Abuse.
What do you do?
Well, first you need to come out of the immediate danger. You tell the saying that she needs to leave the room.
Exactly. You gotta
Get up,
stop.
You gotta stop it. Then you take care of the needs. Then you can report it.
There you go. He said make sure that you take the aide from the room. Ask him to stop, finish helping Mr. Bird, and then report it. The patient tells you during treatment the CNA yelled at her and called her stupid.
Where you at?
Oh, my bad, I skipped one. I'm trying to get out of here, I'm sorry. An aid is brushing Mrs. Jones' hair and gets caught on the knot of hair. Ms. Jones states that she heard abuse, neglect, and misappropriation. Not applicable. Not applicable.
If I have that business, I can't help you.
So it's none of the above. All right, so the patient tells you during treatment that the CNA yelled at her and called her stupid. Abuse. It could be a form of abuse. So what do? You make sure what? You gotta report it, but you make sure that you ask the CNA to just step out, step away. Okay? Now, remember, when you have these reports of abuse, the CNA, the nurse, the individual who is the abuser cannot go back into contact with them until the investigation is completed or until the victim themselves says it's okay. So that means if there's a double room, that CNA, that nurse cannot go in either of the rooms. They cannot go in either of them because now you're instilling fear if she happens to see her abuser in the next room. Alrighty. The patient tells you another patient slapped him on the arm and left a mark. What do? You gotta separate them, right? They may be having a quarrel, but nobody deserves to be hit by somebody else. All right. A patient has pulled their call light 4 times and asked for water. The patient light is turned off and told that they would be right back with water for them. An hour later, the patient turns on their light again and tells you what had happened and still has not got their water. What do? Give them water. Yep. A 90-year-old woman who's bedbound is admitted to the facility. She's experiencing some abdominal pain. During the exam, there is bruising noted on her right inner thigh. Abuse.
Oh, what?
We don't know what happened.
I don't know, that's a hard
Just make sure you put it on the admission report so we don't own it.
Yeah. She came here like that.
CNA report.
But I did that. She came here like that.
But we still have to report it.
Well, 73.
So it's abuse, okay? Unknown origin, excuse me. It is a bruise of unknown origin.
That's not one of our choices.
I know, right?
Okay. Reporting, that's how it Reporting. There you go. You're caring for a 56-year-old female that has multiple sclerosis. You hear from the aides that they feel intimidated by the woman's husband. He loses his temper easily with them and with his wife. When he yells, he uses foul language to all around him. He doesn't seem to understand that his wife can no longer do the things she used to be able to do. He tells you that he's resentful of his wife for her illness. And one day the aide tells you that she's noticed some bruising on both of the wife's upper arms. The husband refused to let you talk to the wife by herself. All right, Mr. Francis is complaining that he did not receive his Jell-O at dessert. On his lunch break, he requested.
Give him some Jell-O.
Give him the damn Jell-O. I got 9 other people to take care of. You got the Jell-O.
I'm trying to tell you.
Please give him this Jell-O. Thank you.
That ain't no glitch.
Any questions?